Hello, everybody. Welcome to my series on people telling their stories of how they got into cyber. And today I've got a really experienced cybersecurity expert with me. It's Sajid Iqbal. He's worked at numerous public sector and private sector organizations. Actually, he's even been involved when a breach has happened on what happens after that. So he really is very experienced at CISO level on how you navigate these choppy waters when things go wrong. So now, with nothing further to do, I'm going to go straight into this. So, Saj, how did you get into cybersecurity?
So first of all, hello, and thanks for having me. So I got into cybersecurity probably not the kind of normal route. It wasn't planned, and I've been working for almost 30 years now. Kind of showing my age. So I started off as an analyst programmer at a college. And that was, to be honest, that was even not really knowing what I wanted to do. After I finished university, I kind of fell into it a little bit by chance. From there, I kind of thought, okay, IT is what I want to do. That's what I kind of like doing. And I worked with databases and Unix systems and, got into kind of IT really. Since then, I've had quite a few different roles within IT. Kind of in 2005, I started work at the University of Manchester, not in cybersecurity.
Yep.
I started there on a 2-year fixed-term contract and ended up staying for almost 15 years.
Yep.
Doing various kind of roles, including kind of database management. From there, more into infrastructure, managing teams. And so at this point, I was kind of involved in cybersecurity already for some of the systems, but not kind of directly and not kind of formally, if that makes sense. And then I got an opportunity to kind of go into cybersecurity, and within the university, kind of I applied for a role, got that role. And this is, I've not done any certs or anything at this point. So and that was probably around 10 years ago now. So I'd had quite a decent career already before I got into this kind of area. And again, it wasn't planned. It kind of happened, and then since then, I've kind of gone with it. And as you mentioned at the start, I've had various roles at public and private sector organisations, very large organisations. Worked on all the kind of different facets of cybersecurity. Whether it's third-party management, vulnerability management, incident response. The whole kind of breadth of the kind of area really. So that's my kind of story of how I got into it. It's kind of probably a bit non-traditional and not planned, but it's been good.
No, that's really interesting. That again, though, I think the very interesting points that you raised there, Saj, is the fact that you've come from an IT background, which has given you a background into cyber, because a lot of aspects, they sort of overlap each other. Cybersecurity overlaps a lot of different aspects within, whether it's access controls within your cloud environment, whether it's actually vulnerabilities within software that's being written, whether it's database management, which needs to make sure that all aspects of the database are locked to ensure it can't be extracted off without authorization. I think there's lots of different aspects of that, and it seems that you've obviously got a very strong grounding from all these areas, which then helped you. Now, you mentioned about certs and boot camps. Did you do any boot camps or certs? Let's just say once you actually got into cyber at the University of Manchester, did you do any certs at that point then?
Yeah, so once I got into it, and I thought, and at that point I started thinking about career trajectory, and how and which direction I want to kind of go. So the first thing I did actually was the CompTIA Security Plus. That was the first one I did really early on in the journey. And then after that, probably kind of dived straight in at the deep end after that and did the CISSP, which was kind of a huge undertaking. And once I'd done that, and it took a bit of time to do that, once I'd done that, I thought I might as well go the whole hog and do the CISM. At the time, and I think still now it's true, that them two are probably the biggest certifications in this kind of area, especially if you're kind of have management type of aspirations, then they are the biggest ones. So yeah, fairly early on in the first few years, I did them, and then after that, to be honest with you, after I'd done them, I'd worked so hard on them, and I thought, you know what, I'm done with these certifications now. So since then, I've not done any others. I've done. No, actually, that's not quite true. I did last year. I want to say beginning of last year. I did the Certified Chief Information Security Officer training and exam. I did that last year, beginning of last year. But again, it wasn't, once a lot of the material I already knew, once you've done the CISM and the CISP, you've been in the field, you've done most of it, I mean.
And I think that's true, and I think that's one of the main things. I think, I mean, CISSP, I think they ask a 5 years experience before, although I've heard of a lot of stories of people passing the exam with no experience and being awarded a CISP, which baffles me, because the whole entry requirements based around it is you have a certain amount of experience within
that. I think the system can be manipulated a little bit.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. So I think that's really, really interesting, and I think you're very much talked about, obviously, coming from a IT background, which has then morphed into cyber, which has then morphed into a senior role where you were actually a CISO at Exertis. And you've worked at sort of a very high level. So what we really want to know, what a lot of the younger generation want to know, is how do they break into cyber? If they're an entry-level candidate, what advice do you have as a seasoned professional with many years experience now? How should they approach breaking into cyber?
So what I want to say is, and I see this a lot, there's loads of people trying to break into cyber, and it's crazy because some of the entry-level roles will say we need 2 years experience. Well, the entry-level, how's that going to happen? The advice I would give is don't just aim for entry-level cybersecurity type of roles. If there's any IT help desk or analyst type of roles going, apply for them, get your foot in the door, get some IT kind of experience. Just coming back on the point before, in my own kind of journey, when I was working, because cybersecurity it's kind of born out of the IT world, and initially the IT department was in charge of the cybersecurity, network security kind of is where it's kind of come from. So in my own journey, when I was managing databases and managing infrastructure, there was a security element to that, to make sure the databases are secure, understanding how that happens, making sure that access control is correct, making sure any ports are closed that should be, all that kind of stuff was already. So even though I wasn't working as a security professional, I still had that kind of stuff in my mind. So for any kind of young people who are trying to break into it, I would say, yes, apply for any kind of analyst type roles, cybersecurity, but don't kind of not go for them kind of roles with the help desk, IT analyst, kind of entry level roles. What that gives you is a decent understanding of kind of IT and gets your foot in the door somewhere. And then from there, either if it's a biggish organisation, you might be able to move from there. But you could also, get involved with some things. I mean, in a lot of quite a few of my roles, I've kind of progressed myself and, kind of thought, right, because this is the direction I want to go in. And therefore, I've kind of worked towards that. And I've been fortunate that I've had kind of good employers who have kind of supported me in that kind of journey, even though it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. So, even if you're an IT help desk person and you've got aspirations, then, you can definitely in your own time be doing kind of, some training and certifications and, let your employers know that that's the direction you want to go. It shows that you've got kind of, that you've got some get up and go, and that, you're not just happy just sat there. So yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just kind of broaden the horizon a little bit.
I think that's really, really key advice. And I think I think one of my other guests on last week, I think it was Mohammed, said exactly the same thing. He said that he himself came from a support background, and I think this is really vital because it gives you a background in IT to be able to understand what vulnerabilities can exist in the first place, and also gives you an understanding of the IT estate in general.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my mentees, she's just secured a role in as an IT, basically in IT support stroke cyber. So and that was it was a fundamental decision that she made, that look, I want to get more experience within IT first. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and I do encourage a lot. I encourage a lot of people that I speak to try and look at going down the IT support route, whether infrastructure, whether desktop support, whichever way it is. It just familiarizes yourself with the technology involved. Yeah, how can you secure something if you don't know
Exactly.
what you're securing? You know, whether it's database systems or whether it's IT infrastructure and networks. You know, one way or another, you need to understand whether it's firewalls, whether it's access controls, whether it's you need a PAM solution on top of the Active Directory, whatever it is. I think there needs to be that fundamental base behind it, and that's why I really think it's very important. So I'd like to thank you very much, indeed, Saj, and you know, I really look forward to putting this episode out like the others. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Perfect. So